We're following breaking news on the tensions between Canada and the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump has abruptly reversed course on a new trade relationship between Canada and China. Trump had previously supported the recently signed deal, but now he's making fresh tariff threats over that very agreement. Linda is back with more on this post. What do we know so far?
Well, we know it now appears certain, coming out of the Prime Minister's trade trip to China and that widely well-received speech in Davos at the World Economic Forum, that President Trump has Canada in his crosshairs, posting this on social media. If Governor Carney thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States, he is sorely mistaken. China will eat Canada alive, completely devour it. Threatening then, if Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. Carney came out of that meeting with China last week with a preliminary deal to lower tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles coming into Canada in return for lower tariffs on canola products for China. And here's what Trump initially said when he was asked for a reaction to that deal.
Canada and China have just signed trade deals between the two partners.
Well, that's okay. That's what he should be doing. I mean, it's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. If you can get a deal with China, you should do that.
So then, in the face of U.S. threats to take over Greenland, Carney gave a speech to the World Economic Forum in Davos on Tuesday saying the old world order is over and urging middle powers to unite. So now an about face and back to the future as well, in the way that you saw him there in that Truth Social post addressing the Prime Minister as Governor Carney. Remember, he used to call Prime Minister Trudeau that when he was talking about Canada becoming a 51st state. It appeared he had a much better relationship with Prime Minister Carney, but not so much anymore. And during Trump's speech in Davos, he responded to Carney's speech saying, Canada lives because of the United States. We then saw Carney double down, responding that at his cabinet retreat there in Quebec City with a speech of his own saying, Canada thrives because we are Canadian. And now this.
Interesting that in Davos, President Trump called him Mark, not Mark Carney, not Prime Minister Carney. Now we're seeing in that post, as you noted, Governor. We heard from the business panel just a few moments ago. Let's talk about the impact on Canadian trade relations going forward. What do we know about that? So
it's worth pointing out that Canada-China deal, that wasn't set in stone anyway. That was always a preliminary agreement. And while farmers in this country were widely happy about it, we know there were others who were not. So Ontario Premier Doug Ford came out saying, auto workers would be negatively affected by this, even calling for a boycott of Chinese EVs. So we don't know what changes would have been made to that deal anyway, but there are bigger fish to fry, of course, and we're talking about CUSMA renegotiations, USMCA. We already heard U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick earlier this week on Thursday in an interview with Bloomberg comment on that deal, saying that this deal may jeopardize CUSMA renegotiations.
Canada has never expressed to the world that they have the best deal, the second best deal in the world. The best deal in the world is Mexico, because remember, they have USMCA, which means 85% of the Canadian economy comes into the United States for zero. And there he is complaining that he's going to go to China and improve it. What's he going to do? China's delighted to sell to him. But do you think China's going to open their economy to accept exports from Canada?
We've been told that Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is still scheduled for those CUSMA renegotiation talks. He should be going to Washington soon as planned, but now we'll wait and see what happens.
All right. Thanks so much for this, Linda. And so for a closer look at what this could mean, we're now joined by Fen Osler-Hampson. He's a professor of international affairs at Carleton University, joining us from Ottawa this morning. Thanks for talking to us today.
Great to be with you, Marianne.
We just heard Linda's report. Quite the shift in tone and message from President Trump. What do you think is behind that?
Well, there's that expression, here we go again. President Trump may see his 100% tariff threat as a warning shot, but I think it rests on a fundamental misunderstanding of what has actually happened between Canada and China. There's no free trade deal that's been signed or even being considered right now. The agreement that we signed with the Chinese simply restored the pre-tariff war status quo on select goods like canola and EVs. Important to bear in mind, there's still ongoing tariffs. 15% Chinese on Canadian canola, seed, and pork. 6% Canadian on Chinese EVs that are going to be coming into Canada. Marianne, that's not free trade. Anything but. And Trump's hypocrisy and the statement we just heard from his Secretary of Commerce is stunning. It's only a couple of months ago that the United States signed its own deal with China to lower tariffs on Chinese goods in exchange for the Chinese being allowed to import semiconductors and other things that they want to buy from the Americans. So I think it's important to push back and perhaps quietly point out that we're doing exactly the same thing the Americans are doing to lower trade tensions with China.
So then how do you think this will impact CUSMA negotiations?
Well, it's obviously going to affect the tone of those negotiations. I think we should be under no illusions. They're going to be playing hardball. They're going to be taking a run at us on autos, on supply management, on our digital policies. But it's going to be pretty rough going. But I think these tensions can probably be eventually lowered. I think what's driving Donald Trump's irritation is, as was noted by Linda a few moments ago, is the speech that Prime Minister Carney gave at Davos about the ruptured global order. Now, he didn't single out the United States in those comments, but it was pretty clear who the message was directed at, and the president has taken umbrage at it.
So then what next then? Because this is not the first time we've heard President Trump direct threats at Canada or other countries for that matter. We've only got a minute left, but just want to ask you, what can Canada do then to avoid potentially a much more significant trade war with the United States moving forward?
Well, I think we don't rise to the bait. We keep our heads down. At the end of the day, it's Americans who are going to have to put the guardrails around their president, including Congress, including the 32 states for which Canada is their most important trading partner. It's domestic politics in the United States that ultimately are going to have to rein in this president. I think we have to recognize we don't have a whole lot of leverage there.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and for your insight. Professor of International Affairs at Carleton University, Ben Osler-Hampson. Thanks again.